Okay, this is Jim Hamilton. I'm an author. I do a lot of work, a lot of research, and things are moving along very fast these days. My first book is called Visionaries Thrive in All Times. Actually comes from an expression, observers thrive in good times and suffer in bad. Visionaries thrive in all times. Actually comes from Abraham Hicks. My first website is associated with the book. It's called Visionaries Lab. The foundation of all my work is Visionaries Thrive in All Times. There's a number of basic ideas that were developed in that book, and out of that has come Core Resonance. Core Resonance is a website, coreresonance.com, and it is also an ebook, Core Resonance, Ultimate Personal Performance. What all this is about, what all of my work is about, is quieting the brain so that we can identify something that's always been available but for the racket and static and noise. In other words, we're on overload, and something that is so very subtle that's always been there seems to be unavailable because we just can't detect it. So my work is about quieting the brain using proprietary neurofeedback and other combined concepts together to put the brain into an environment where it can see itself firing, where it can see how it fires when given certain kinds of exercises, and it actually learns how to correct itself. It's kind of like learning how to use tweezers in a mirror for the first time. There's a great deal of coordination involved in not poking your eye out or whatever you're trying to do. And as the brain does the core resonance exercises hooked up to the computer is a feedback mechanism, and so the mind, the brain, discovers how it works. So we give it exercises, it sees how it does the exercises, and it cleans itself up, and it learns new habits and new patterns. Ultimately, the brain will quiet itself down, becomes more coordinated, the frequencies of the brain become better defined, and actually get a little sharper, maybe even quite a bit sharper. Now what we want to do with this sharpness, if you will, is learn how to detect innate intelligence. Now innate intelligence is something that exists in nature. It exists in everything, actually. Anything from the finest electron microscope to the largest telescopes, all we see is order in the universe. Everything we speculate about is order and identifies order. And there's something behind that order. I call it innate intelligence. Some people might call it God. I don't use the term God too often because there's a lot of connotation with God, sometimes angry God, lightning bolt God, you name it. So I use innate intelligence, I use the term source. The point is our nervous system and our brain, which is all one and the same thing, is actually a receiver, and what it receives is insight from innate intelligence or source. But this doesn't happen when the brain's on overload, when the brain is too rackety and noisy and stressed and on overload. And so what we do is we quiet down through proprietary exercises. One of the things we want to understand, though, is that the brain is doing something it was never meant to do. What was it never meant to do? It's not meant to be a processor. The brain processes all of our activities, it processes our surroundings, it attempts to process all the facts so it can make choices and decisions, and we know that the brain's unable to put all the facts together. It's impossible. All the facts appropriate for making a choice. So if that's the case, the brain's making choices and decisions without knowing all the facts, and if it continuously does that, I think you have a problem, and that's really what we have, is brains on overload and not keeping up. All of us are in overload, and increasingly so. What we want to do is, in quieting the brain, re-enable this natural state of connection with Source, something that every other living thing on the planet has in an intact connection. Flowers do not have free will. Animals do not have free will. Trees do not have free will. The mineral kingdom does not have free will. Everything abides by prescribed or an ascribed pattern. Everything fits in, I might add. Everything the squirrel does contributes to the trees, and everything the blue jay does contributes to the trees and the squirrel, because the blue jay drops things, the squirrels pick it up, they bury it, it becomes trees. There's no end to it. There's no end to it. My point is the humans are off track because we're trying to do it on our own. We're outside of our standard state of connection with Source. We are on our own, trying to do it on our own, and we're creating dysfunctional realities right and left. In fact, we're about to tip the planet over. We've reached a point of nuclear radiation and oil spills and you name it. What we want to do is learn how to plug back into something that is successful. It's eminently successful and always has been and always will be. And we do this by attuning and refining the nervous system. And in attuning and refining this nervous system, it quiets down. Just like an engine that doesn't have oil in there, just like an engine where the valves need to be adjusted, and it's not where the timing needs to be adjusted so that it cleans up and runs better. That's what the humans need to do. And there's only one way to do that, plugging back into innate intelligence. When we do that, innate intelligence takes over the processing. It begins to take over the processing of what we can't actually do very well. For example, the movie What the Bleep states that the brain processes information in chunks of about 2,000 bits at a time. There's 400 billion bits of information available, all of it ever changing. Do you think the brain can keep up? Not a chance. The brain is on overload. As we quiet the brain, re-enable this natural state of connection with Source, build that connection so that we can rely on it, it will start processing the world in our behalf, and what that allows us to do is to relax. Takes us out of the responsibility of the driver's seat and having to know what's around every corner and address every little thing. This is where reaction and resistance and defensive posturing and survival methodologies come from. Instead, what we want to do is plug into a bigger picture that has an overview that we are simply incapable of because our brain isn't big enough. As we learn how to allow, as we learn how to relax, as we learn how to let the universe contribute to our unfolding, the world becomes a better place because we learn how to create realities in a different manner. In a manner that includes synchronicity and harmony and order. A manner that includes contributing to other people's welfare without even knowing it. We all contribute. What we want to do is move away from resistance and reaction and move into flow. In doing this, the universe, innate intelligence, if you will, becomes able to flow through us as our resistance drops and drops and drops. Innate intelligence becomes able to flow through us into this dimension and deliver solutions. Think about it. A rose has a simple nervous system. It has no resistance also. A rose expresses innate intelligence perfectly, whether it's the texture of the petal, the color of the petal, the fragrance, the pattern of the thorns. So very many things are really innate intelligence capacity to express itself. In fact, if you look around nature, if you look around, that's what's going on, every way, shape, fashion, and form. Innate intelligence powers and is behind everything. Because the humans have this big brain, this free will, we are stuck. We are trying to do things on our own. We have not quite yet discovered that it's not in our capacity to do things on our own. We need to partner with something eminently more successful. As we learn how to do that, we will come to have heaven on earth, at least in our little worlds individually. I might add, there's a formula, law of attraction and non-resistance. As we quit producing and creating our realities through resistance, defensive posturing, reactionary, on and on and on, as we relax, In non-resistance, there's a scale and a state of order that simply becomes available. My work in part is about that transition period, but as non-resistance becomes available and we stop creating our realities through resistance, our worlds change. Initially individually, we also start attracting a different caliber and kind of people around us because why? Our resonance and our prayer, our outgoing prayer shifts. If you'd like to learn more about what we're doing, contact me through the website, through coreresonance.com or visionarieslab.com. My name is Jim Hamilton. Great to make your acquaintance. Thank you.